Okay, thank you for being here. My name is Joanne, otherwise known as JoeGirl. I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable in the chat and that you have had an opportunity to say hello and tell us where you're watching from. That would be amazing. There's so many people here. I think the furthest away I saw was New Zealand.
Yes.
Amazing, very cool. All right, so we are here for a webinar about creativity. Yes, we are here because many of us struggle to find the time and the confidence you think you need to honor our creative callings. Are you guys ready? Are you all fired up to hear about how to create more creative play in your lives? Everybody all fired up? Show me in the chat that you're excited and ready to go.
Send a thumbs up.
Send a thumbs up. Yeah. Very cool. Yes. Woo. Awesome. Woohoo. Ready. Great. Very cool. So, this is a question that I have been asking my participants in workshops and retreats and on Instagram and, pretty much anybody that I come in touch with, I ask them, what is keeping you from enjoying a little creative play every day? You've probably seen me asking this question a lot in my Instagram stories. So, tell us in the chat, what is keeping you from enjoying a little creative play every day? Time, sleep, work, kids. Yep. Studying, adulting, work, your job, time and energy, health, chronic illness. Okay. Inspiration, prioritizing it, doing stuff for others other than myself. Woo! All right. You guys, I don't want to say that it's predictable, but it's predictable. So based on the hundreds of responses from people I've asked over the years and just seeing your responses here in the chat, I'm guessing for the most part, you said something like, at the end of the day, there is no time left for me, right? Totally resonates with probably most of us. I don't have my own space to spread out and just play, right? Is that resonating with some of you guys too? Okay. I will never be good enough to be an actual artist. I should have italicized the word actual. I don't know where to begin or even how. I really don't know if I have what it takes. Right. And tell us in the chat, how would you feel if you never had to say or think those things again? If those obstacles didn't exist? If those reasons for neglecting your creative energy didn't exist, how would you feel? Freeing, getting into the flow, lighter, free, fantastic, fabulous. Lots of F words, you guys. Wonderful. And not judged. That's amazing. Great, joyful, creative, happy, no regret, like you could accomplish anything. Amazing, flow. Oh my God, these are such good words. Amazing. Thank you so much. Amazing. Okay. So I saw some of these words in the chat. We had free. I think free was the first word we saw. Confident, enthusiastic, inspired, talented. And some of you said joyful, which is one of my favorite words. And it's kind of one of my life themes is joy, right? I know that is something that a lot of us strive for, is to feel more joyful. And that's what I'm all about. And that is one of the things that we're aiming to accomplish with this webinar and this new knowledge. Amazing. Okay, well, guess what? It's time to clear your path to creativity. Okay, this is one of my favorite Brené Brown quotes. You often see the first part of it, but the second part is equally touching. There's no such thing as creative people and non-creative people. There are only people who use their creativity and people who don't. Unused creativity doesn't just disappear. It lives within us until it's expressed, neglected to death, or suffocated by resentment and fear. Right. You might have just seen a cameo of my dog Marley. So I'm guessing that this quote really resonated with some of you and maybe kind of felt a little bit ouchy. But it's really true. I genuinely believe that everybody is creative. Creativity isn't just artistic creativity. Every single choice that we make in our day is a creative choice. What we choose to eat for dinner, what we choose to wear, the color of our lipstick, how we choose to respond to a situation, it's a creative choice. Creation is just making a choice, or making something new, or making something happen. So just try to keep that in mind as we go through the slide deck, that we are all creative, okay? So here's what you can expect during our time together. Now, I've got the Zoom session kind of booked for 2 hours. I figure the webinar will take about 45 minutes, and then we've got some space for Q&A after, but I really want to be wrapped up and logged off by 9. So let's try to get through it as best we can. I welcome you at any time to take a selfie while you're watching the webinar, or a screenshot and post it to Instagram. Tag me, I'm Hey JoeGirl on Instagram and just about anywhere, but I would love for you to just show me some love for this webinar, and yeah, just kind of raise some hype about it. So here's what we are going to cover in this webinar. You're going to learn a little tiny bit about me, not too much, just enough to let you feel confident that I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to touch on the benefits of creative play and why immersing yourself in creativity is so good for you and those around you. We are, of course, going to talk about the 5 obstacles on your creative path and how to clear them. So each of the 5 obstacles has 3 slides. The first is a slide of how these obstacles might be showing up for you. The second is a series of questions to ask yourself. And the third is a bunch of breakthrough strategies that you can use to try to clear that specific obstacle. I also have a super exciting announcement for you. I hinted at this in my Instagram stories and in my main newsletter that I sent to my entire list a few days ago. I'm announcing and launching a brand new 6-week live course that's happening later in September. So I want to tell you about it, and I have a special offer for you for attending this webinar live tonight. And finally, your questions. So hold your questions to the end when we'll have a Q&A extravaganza. You can pretty much ask me anything, but specifically about this webinar and about the course that I'm going to be announcing. Yeah, okay. Well, a little bit about me. I know some of you are new to JoeGirl, and some of you have been kind of lifelong friends and followers. So I'll just give you the Coles Notes, history of me. So I have always been a doodler. I've always been making marks, whether it's in my, notebook for school or on a chalkboard or a whiteboard. Honestly, there was no chalkboard or whiteboard that was safe. If I ended up going to my mom's office, I was always doodling on her whiteboard. There's no surface safe from my marks. In high school, you could have found me in any of the studios, the drama studio, the dance studio, or the art studio. I ended up graduating from college in creative advertising, although I also applied to universities for film and television production, journalism, what was the other thing? Architecture. I applied for all kinds of different creative careers, and I landed on creative advertising, which actually was a really great foundation for my business, which I founded in 1992, immediately after graduating. So in 1992, I founded my brand and publication design company called In Detail, and that is the parent company to JoeGirl and everything that I do. So if you get an invoice from me, it's from In Detail. That's what that is. In 2006, I decided to start a blog, and I needed a name for the blog. And I've always been known as Joe, and I've always put the E on my Joe because I'm a bit of a tomboy and I just like things in 3s. So I decided to refer to myself as Joe, and JoeGirl ended up being the name of my blog. I registered the trademark for JoeGirl in 2009 when I decided to abandon graphic design and certify to become a personal trainer. So I did that in 2009, and I actually co-opened a gym in a really cool part of Ottawa. And during that time, I was working primarily with female clients. My personal training clients were women, and I would ask them as part of their training sessions, just part of conversation, but I would ask them, what would you do if you could do anything, because I'm a curious person and I like to find out about people. And it really broke my heart how often I would hear, I don't know. I don't really know who I am anymore. I feel like I've kind of lost myself. And oftentimes these women would come to tears just thinking about that, how lost they felt, like they became a husband, or they became a wife, they became a mom, they maybe were a business owner, maybe they were an employee. They kind of lost their way and they lost what brought them joy. So in building relationships with these clients and these women, I've really learned that there is a need for women to have access to ways to find themselves again. So from that, my Live Your Spirit program was developed, and I transitioned from working with women on their bodies to working with women on their minds and their spirits. And some of you who've been to some of my events will recognize that name, as that is the name of my creative play weekend for women. It's the Live Your Spirit retreat. Well, fitness was all well and good, but in 2013, I was kind of craving to get back into the design world again. So I returned to In Detail, but still something was missing. And that was what I like to call analog creativity. So for better part of 20 years at that point, I was doing design work on the computer. Now, I love a Macintosh computer, don't get me wrong, but I was just craving doing that mark making with my hands. So I tapped into modern calligraphy because it was kind of an up and coming trend. And I got out some nibs and ink and I started playing with modern calligraphy. And I started posting about that on Instagram, and people started asking me about it and asking, like, could you teach me how to do that? Well, as most entrepreneurs do, when you get an idea that might be a good business idea, you roll with it. So before too long, I was hosting modern calligraphy workshops. You may know that Becca Cordes was one of my calligraphy students. She went on to be the Happy Hour Crafter, and I'm super proud of her for that. I also led workshops in illustrative hand lettering, brush lettering, watercolor brush lettering. I went on to lead watercolor workshops, art journaling workshops, vision board workshops, and acrylic mixed media workshops. So I've led so many women, hundreds and hundreds of women have come around my workshop table and to my retreats and to online classes. And it's just been such a joy that it is the foundation of my business. But of course, in 2020, we were all struck by a global pandemic, and my studio workshop has been empty ever since. So I had to change my business quickly. And in the fall, I guess October, November of last year, I developed a membership site called CAMP, which stands for Creative Awakenings, Mindfulness, and Play. I'm not talking about CAMP tonight. Lisa can pop the link to it in the chat if you're interested. But we are going to be talking all about the 5 obstacles on your creative path and how to clear them. And then I'm going to tell you about my new course coming in September. So is everybody ready to get crack-a-lackin'? All right. Sandra says camp is fabulous. Thank you. Okay. So next up, we're going to chat a little bit about the benefits of creative plays. The benefits of creative play. I just saw Dawn's comment saying that the camp is our happy place. So creative play has so many benefits. And, you know, I use my creativity in artistic ways, but and even artistic is a very loosey-goosey term, but I think you know what I mean, like fine arts. But there are so many other forms of creativity. Just for the purpose of this workshop and for my business, I talk about more fine art creativity, right? But you can consider creative play playing a guitar, baking a cake, baking almond squares, knitting, sewing, gardening, cooking, like pottery, writing poetry, just writing in general. Going for a walk and taking some photographs of what you see is very creative. There are countless definitions to the term creative play, and they all have these same benefits. So, stress relief. We all know that when we get into a zone, just doing something and disconnecting from the outside world, that our stress levels go down. This is science. It's science. It's been shown that our cortisol levels completely drop when we are in a state of flow. And when we're in that state of flow, our minds are open to more meditative moments, more mindful and present moments, which in turn improves mental clarity. It frees up our minds to be more open to new thoughts and to different ways of looking at things. Creative play facilitates problem solving. When you think differently in order to have a creative output, it allows you to think differently for other things. So maybe your work performance improves, or maybe you have a new business idea, or maybe you come up with a different parenting strategy that might work a little bit better for your teenager. So there are so many different problem-solving benefits when you immerse yourself in creative play. Of course, creative play helps us connect to our inner child. It prevents and relieves burnout. And this was probably one of the things that's really resonated with me. Like, I have so many times just being so up to my eyeballs in business stuff, and people closest to me can see me getting edgy, getting testy, getting irritable. And, like my boyfriend Sean will say, when's the last time you just painted for the sake of painting? Like, don't put it on Instagram. Don't, show anybody. You don't have to tell anybody, but just go and paint and get out of your head. And he's exactly right. Just taking yourself out of a stressful situation can help you prevent and relieve pending burnout. And I love this last one. Builds intimacy with self and others. The very first time I hosted a workshop, most of the women who attended didn't know anybody else. They knew me, but they didn't know anybody else around the table. But by the end of the 3 hours, they had connected. They had experienced some learning together. They had experienced a lot of laughs together. They had experienced vulnerability and struggling to learn something new, grasp that new concept. So in a way, they had 3 hours of really cool bonding time. The very first time I had an art retreat weekend, it blew my mind how many women, first of all, showed up by themselves. Like, how brave is that? But by the end of it, all of these women have become super close. And a lot of the women who are here today, who clearly know me and they're my campers and who've been to my events, they're all really close friends now because they shared this amazing creative experience together. So it can be very community building, be very bonding. And also, it's really great for couples and families and parents and siblings to share creative play together. When you can share a laugh, when you can learn something together, and when you experience those vulnerable moments, your bond becomes more intimate and is strengthened. So I love that creative play can strengthen your relationships. Can you guys come up with any other benefits of creative play that I haven't mentioned here? Maybe pop them in the chat. If you've experienced a different kind of benefit, I would love to see that in your chat. So just go ahead and pop some of your own ideas in there. Benefit is the flow. Yeah, that flow state, kind of the meditative state. Relieves loneliness, amazing, gets out of your head, improves self-confidence, connections around the world, can bring real joy, allows your subconscious to process what you're conscious. I love that, Vicky. Yes, escape from pain. You can forget what day it is. Relieves anxiety. Yes, absolutely. Self-care, bingo, bingo, bingo. Keeps your hands busy. I love that. Thank you so much, everybody. So good. Such good answers. Connections with others. I love that. Perfect. All right. So now let's talk about the 5 obstacles on your creative path. So do you remember those 5 statements in the navy blue slides that I said earlier, and when I asked you guys what was actually keeping you from enjoying some creative play every day? All of those answers from my research and from just analyzing all of the answers I've received over the years, they all kind of boil down to the same 5 themes. And so those are the themes that I'm turning into what we're calling tonight obstacles. So I want to walk you through how these obstacles might be showing up for you, and you might not even realize that you have these obstacles, right? You can't possibly clear an obstacle if you don't even really know that it's there. So I'm going to bring some awareness to what these obstacles might look like for you in your experience. The second slide in each part is a series of questions to ask yourself, and they can be a little bit confronting. So, but take a moment with each one and just kind of think, like, does this relate to me? And maybe I need to spend some time on this. And then finally, on the third slide, we're going to talk quickly about some breakthrough strategies for each of the 5 obstacles. Okay, ready for number 1? Remember this question at the end, or the statement, at the end of the day, there is no time left for me. So the number 1 answer, and it was tonight as well, is time. So see if any of these statements ring true for you. I just don't have any me time. There's no energy left at the end of the day. There's too much running around. I gave up my hobbies when I had kids, got a job, got married, started my business? When did you give up your hobbies? A lot of people point to obligations and expectations, family, career, business, and just having too much to do, right? So, how is time an obstacle for you? Feel free to drop that in the chat. You feel guilty spending time with yourself doing creative play. That's crazy. Kids. Yeah. Amazing. Depression. Put your family first. Guilt. So the next slide, I'm going to ask some questions, and I just want you to think quietly about each one and see how they make you feel. So is it really about the clock, right? We all have the same 24 hours in the day. It's really about the expectations that you place on yourself and if you're making yourself a priority. Somebody mentioned prioritizing in the chat, and it's so true. You know, when we get on a plane, I know it's been a long time for a lot of people, and they're running through the security protocol and the safety protocol, and they always say, adults, put your oxygen mask on first. And I've been using that phrase in my own life for a couple of years now. You have to put your own oxygen mask on first in order to be completely present for those around you when they need you. If you're depleted, you can't possibly be showing up at your best for the things in your life that need you, the people and other things in your life that need you. So you need to make yourself a priority. How is your self-care routine? Do you go to the gym? Do you go to yoga? Do you go for walks? Like, are you doing those things anyway, or are you just not doing them at all? So what's your level of self-care on an average day? Do you set time aside to recharge? And how do you do that? Are you scrolling through your phone? Are you watching Netflix? Are you consuming outside influence rather than creating and rather than tapping into yourself? Are you setting boundaries with others? This one can feel a little bit ouchy. The word boundaries has, negative connotations, but I think you can set boundaries with love with the people around you. And if you can get them to understand the benefits of your own self-care, not only to yourself, but to them, you can set loving boundaries that would be respected by everybody. So how can you adjust your mindset around time? Yeah, boundaries is prickly. We need to cut the stigma around the word boundaries. Okay, let's look at some ways that we can bust through the time obstacle. My philosophy is that if you can spend 20 minutes a day, which works out to 2.3 hours a week, that feels like nothing, right? If you can spend 20 minutes a day immersed in creative play, that is more than enough. Maybe you don't have 20 minutes every day, but I bet you could find a way to break down that 2.3 hours a week to get yourself some regular creative playtime. Make your creative playtime a priority. Wake up 20 minutes earlier. That's not a big deal. Block it in your agenda, just like a regular work meeting. Block your creative playtime in your agenda. Make a standing date with yourself. Yeah, Kimberly in the chat is saying an hour a day is only 4% of a day. Like, we all have the same number of hours in a day. So make a standing date with yourself. It has to be non-negotiable, okay? I love this one. Invite a friend to join you, not only for accountability, but also for fun. And again, like I just mentioned, it would be a great relationship building opportunity for the two of you, right? Maybe you're not getting together in person just yet, but you can set Zoom dates or FaceTime dates where you just kind of get together and do some doodling together or do a creative exercise together. Maybe even like make a cocktail together or, do some other cooking or something, just something creative. Go for a Zoom walk together, right? Like, just find a friend to make a regular creative play date with every week or a couple of times a week. And then I've already touched on this, but try to set loving boundaries with your family, right? Explain to them what you need, why you need it. Invite them to participate, maybe not all the time, but sometimes. Get them involved in this decision that you're making so that everybody understands and respects your needs and your boundaries. So what other ideas do you all have for ways to incorporate creative play into your time? You can share it in the chat. Pick a time period that's achievable. 5 minutes, 2 times a week to start. Yes, exactly. 1 lunch hour a week to do this. Name it as a meeting if you have a shared calendar. Exactly. I know a couple ladies who block this time off and just call it a meeting. Small chunks of time to start. Exactly. And 20 minutes goes by so quickly. But the beauty of immersing yourself in something that inspires that Zen state is that time actually does feel like it slows down a little bit. Every second week is blocked off time for creatives on Zoom. Very cool. Get away from the idea of needing to. Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about materials and stuff in one of the next obstacles. Amazing. All right. So the second most common answer, actually, it's usually tied for third, but I've broken them down. The next most common answer, I don't have my own space to spread out and just play. So the second most common obstacle is space. Let's see if these resonate with you at all. I don't have a designated creative space. My space isn't inspiring. I'm always having to put stuff away. So either other people's stuff so that you can make room to create, or you have to put your creative stuff away to make room for everybody else. Your room, your apartment, your condo, your house is just full. There's just nowhere else to move. Not enough light, it's too noisy. The list goes on and on. So tell us in the chat, how is space an obstacle for you?
Become a junk.
Nice, busy.
That's too bad. That's sad.
I didn't see that one. Oh, the junk room, yeah.
Leslie Harris.
Oh, Leslie. Hi, Les. Hi, Kimberly. Love that, Gigi. So good.
Yeah.
Dinner table. So your family eats on the floor? That's hilarious. Amazing. Okay, so I know that space is a common problem. Let's see if we can give you some fresh ideas around that tonight. Here are some questions to ask yourself about the obstacle of space. Is it really about your floor plan? Right? Space can define so many other things. It's not just about your geographical space, your physical space. What beliefs do you have around the word space? Have you created space in your schedule, right? Have you created space in your energy? Have you created space in your relationships? That's the boundary setting we just talked about. And more on a practical side, how much space do you really need? Like, not everybody's going to be able to convert a dining room living space into a big studio, but how much space, like I don't need all this space. I could put my paints in a bin instead of on the wall. How much space do you really need? Okay. And can you think outside the box literally? Or is it figuratively? Literally. Editor.
Yeah.
Can you actually bust apart your definition of the word space and think outside the box? How can you adjust your mindset around space and redefine what it actually means? All right, let's look at some strategies for breaking through the space obstacle. The reality is, you really don't need much space in order to create. You can use a caddy, a basket, an ottoman maybe that has storage inside. You can maybe assign a kitchen cupboard that has all those old kitty plates in it that you don't use anymore as your sacred creative storage cupboard. A shelf, we hear home organizing and decor gurus all the time saying, use your vertical space in your homes for storage and for display and things like that. So what about a shelf, right? Make your creative toolkit something that's portable and easy to tuck away, but not something that you're constantly rooting through to find what you're looking for. All you really need is an art journal and a few mark making tools. Like if you were just trying to boil this down to the bare minimum, all you really need is an art journal. I should have had one within reach. I don't. Oh, I do. Is an art journal and a few pens, maybe a travel kit of watercolors and a water brush, right? You don't need a lot. Fill a backpack for creativity and just have it ready to go at a moment's notice. Here we go, thinking outside the box. What about sharing a space with a friend or family member? Maybe you've got a friend or family member who lives alone and they have a little bit of space in their home. What about calling that friend in for some regular creative playtime and using their space? Maybe you bring the materials and they provide the space, or you bring the snacks and wine and they provide the space. So get that friend on board for a regular play date and use their space, or maybe go with them or go on your own to a coffee shop or an outdoor patio. Maybe your garage could be used as a bit of a creative space when the weather is suitable for that, or your back shed that's just got old rusty tools in it. Even a tent if you had to when you were out camping or something like that. And what about your car? My car sits in the garage. If I really needed to get away for 20 minutes a couple times a week, I can easily go and sit in my car, put on my tunes, and just like zone out and use my little to-go kit of creative supplies and just get into the moment. So what other ideas do you have for fun ways that you can create space for your creative playtime? I love that idea, Michelle, of organizing your interests into separate boxes, one for calligraphy, one for floral arranging. That's brilliant. So depending on what you feel like doing, you can just kind of grab the box and go. That's really smart. Jocelyn loves going camping. Absolutely. Plein air, blankets. Yes, absolutely. Cool. Convert a closet into an art room. Yes, I actually love that idea. My older son, who is usually at his dad's house, has a big walk-in closet in his room. And if I was really pinched for space or for some reason needed to convert this space back to a dining room, his walk-in closet would be a perfect space for me to line the shelves with my art supplies. There's a big window in it even, like it's great. And you know, with lighting right now, bad lighting is a bad excuse. With LED lighting, with the natural light, the daylight, you can really light up a space that doesn't even have a window in it. Under the bed storage, yeah, for sure. The key with all of these really great storage solutions is that you don't want it to be out of sight and out of mind, but you want it to be portable and tuck awayable. So some really great ideas in the chat. All right, the third obstacle on our path to creativity is I will never be good enough to be an actual artist. This one came up in the chat when I asked the question right off the top, and it's confidence. I'm surprised that this isn't the number one answer, but time truly did come in way above and beyond confidence. But maybe when you see how this shows up for you, you might actually realize, oh, maybe I do struggle with confidence a little bit. So how about some of these statements? I don't have a creative bone in my body. I'll never be as good as you. I hear that a lot from young people. Like even my own sons when they were smaller, like I'll never be as good as you are, so why even bother trying, right? But I've also heard some adults say that. My family mocks me for trying new things. Yeah, that's a confidence issue. What about self-doubt and imposter syndrome? Do you suffer from having high expectations of yourself and of your creative output? And do you suffer from comparisonitis? If you're always trying to compare yourself to what other people are doing, that's a confidence issue. Are you afraid of wasting time and money on supplies to just end up making crap, right? That's not having enough confidence in your abilities to make the value of the materials seem worth it. And maybe you're afraid that it just won't work, that it won't make you feel better, that it won't bring you joy, that it won't reduce your stress, right? Maybe you're just afraid it won't work. Well, that's a confidence issue. So aside from these statements, how is confidence an obstacle for you? If you want to share some of your own feelings around that in the chat, that might be really insightful for some other folks here. So Lucy saying she mentally expects herself to be great at everything right away, and when she's not, she gets discouraged. That is just so classic. It's so classic. He painted a Mabs jacket. Smart. Comparison kills confidence. Yes, yes. There's another quote about comparison, that comparison is the thief of joy. Write that on your hand. Comparison is the thief of joy. Perfectionism, yes. Sandra, totally. Following other artists on Instagram was inspiring at first, but then I started the comparing thing. Totally. Being your own worst critic. Yeah, absolutely. The process of creating is the healing and the stress reliever, not the end results. Heidi, that's amazing. Beautiful. Love that, everybody. Thanks for sharing. Okay, let's see what questions we can ask ourselves around confidence. What beliefs do you have around creativity? What's your actual belief? Like, how do you define creativity and how do you define artist? Because in the definition of creativity and artist is probably the answer to why you struggle with confidence. What expectations do you place on yourself? Right? Do you, like somebody said, they expect themselves to be great at it right out of the gate. So you've got these really crazy, intense expectations. So think about your life before this moment. What have you learned and what have you mastered before? What new things have you tried before that you figured out along the way and now you're really good at? Well, I know one, walking, right? Feeding yourself with a fork, cutting food with a knife, like we figured that stuff out. So maybe share in the chat quickly. I didn't plan on asking you guys to share in the chat, but maybe share in the chat something can be super remedial or something really cool. What have you learned and mastered in your life to this point? You were a potter with mad skills. Survival skills. Knitting, amazing. Sewing, baking, cooking, knitting,
Wow.
cooking.
Hanging ceiling fans.
Ceiling fans, yeah. Yeah, amazing. All kinds of crafts. Right. So if you think about it, you can probably come up with easily a dozen or more or dozens of things that you've already learned and mastered before. So why would creativity be any different, right? And the answer to that lies in your answer of what expectations do you place on yourself and what beliefs do you have around creativity. So if you could spend some time answering these questions, feel free to screenshot these questions, by the way, so that you can kind of return to them later if you wanted to do some journaling around this. You'll also have access to the replay of the webinar too, if you want to do that and press pause on the replay, because these are real discovery questions. Okay. And if you can spend some time asking yourself these questions and journaling around your answers, you're going to open up a whole world of possibility for yourself, not just in the creative play space. So how's your own self-talk, and what would you say to somebody just starting out? How would you talk to somebody who is struggling with their confidence around creative play? What limits do you place on yourself? And then the last one really is, what's the rush? Like, why do we feel that we have to learn something super quickly? What's the rush? That could also go into time. The time obstacle was more about making it a regular occurrence in your day or your week. This is more about like the impatience, right? Yeah, try different classes. Okay, well here, let's go with some solutions. Number one, show yourself grace and patience. Right? It's unreasonable to expect that you're going to be great at something the first time you try it. So show yourself grace and patience. Give yourself permission to make ugly crap. A friend of mine who's kind of a small business guru, her name's Lisa Larder, she just published a blog post and she referenced something that I told her recently when she asked me about what art supplies she should buy. She just had this itch to try painting and she hadn't done it since she was a little kid, and she's, I think, my age. So I gave her a few ideas of what to buy and she said, how do I start? And I said, make something as ugly as you possibly can. And that just totally lowers your inhibition. It breaks through that feeling of vulnerability and it breaks through the fear of staring at that white canvas, right? So just give yourself permission to make ugly crap and then laugh about it. Make it fun. Make that failure, and I don't like using the word failing or failure, but just laugh about it. Laugh about your mistakes and look at those mistakes and look at what you create with wonder and curiosity. It's the curiosity that is going to alleviate the anxiety around not feeling good enough if you can be curious about it. On a more practical level, try to challenge yourself to try a variety of new mediums. So maybe you're very used to doing modern calligraphy with a pointed pen and a nib, but what if you tried it with water brush, like watercolor and a paintbrush, a fine paintbrush? What if you tried that? Try pottery instead of sewing. Try doing other things to see if you could remind yourself that you're good at what you were doing in the first place. And of course, this is one of my favorites, take a local or online class and really take as many as you can. Online is so easy. So many of them are recorded. You can do them at any time. Local is fun because you build that community and you get to meet people and you have that one-on-one or one on a few engagements with the other participants. But try to take as many online learning opportunities or learning opportunities as you can in as many different things as you can. And you'll start to realize what you like about each different thing. And we've all heard the expression, do it for the process. Heidi touched on this in her comment in the chat. The process is where we find the healing and the quiet and the calm and the stillness and that Zen state, like just enjoying the process, enjoying how you're learning from what you're doing, enjoying the growth that you're experiencing as you're doing it. One of my most recent, if not the most recent blog posts is called The Discomfort of Ugly. And I talked about mixed media painting that I was creating and filming for my camp community. And there was a point in the process where I just wanted to throw that thing out the window. I hated it so much. I had to put it down and walk away and leave it for, I think it was like a day. And I was so riddled with anxiety. I thought, how can I be such a dork at this? I'm filming it for a class and I am failing. Like, this is awful. I could have abandoned the whole video, the whole piece, and just started over. But I let it sit and I returned to it and I just tried something new. I tried to take it in a completely different direction and it ended up being one of my most favorite pieces ever. My friend Marie ended up buying it. But the process taught me so much about what I liked, what I struggled with. And it also shed light on some of my crappy self-talk that I realized I still need to work on. So do it for the process. So what ideas do you have on ways that you can up your creative confidence? Yes, oh, that's a great one. Not sure how to pronounce your name, Jayanti. Share it with your biggest cheerleader first. Yes, absolutely. So if you create something and you want to share it with somebody, go to the person that you know is going to gush over it, right? Absolutely. That's a great one. Thanks, Dawn. Okay, are you guys ready for number 4? I don't know where to begin or even how. So this obstacle is the inspiration factor. Inspiration is something that I think a lot of people visualize as being little like magical butterflies floating around them, or sparkles or twinkles or Tinkerbell from Peter Pan, and you can just like pluck it out of midair and hold it in your hand and you're good to go. But that's not what it is. Inspiration might be blocking you if you resonate with any of these statements. I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm out of ideas. Where do I even begin? Do you ever feel unsure about how to translate your vision into reality? I know a couple women who struggle with that. And maybe you can't seem to tap into your inner inspiration. You lean too much on Pinterest and Instagram, right? Are you looking at the same things day in and day out? I don't know if you follow me on Instagram or if you saw my stories on the weekend, but I was busy preparing for this webinar and I just couldn't concentrate here at my desk. So I took my laptop and sat outside on my front porch, surrounded by my little container garden and enjoying the summer breeze and watching the cows in the field across the main road and seeing neighbors passing by. And it was just So much more inspiring and incentivizing. And it just gave me another opportunity to focus in a different way. And do you just feel super blah and uninspired when you think about cracking open your art journal? So, how might inspiration be an obstacle for you? You struggle making something that hasn't been done to death. Yes, I hear that a lot from my coaching clients. They might be really great at floral illustrations, but figure what's the point because there are a jillion other floral illustrators out there. Can't seem to visualize in your mind what you want to create. Yeah, absolutely. Can't tap into your own inspiration. Yeah, I think that's a really big one. It's just not feeling like you're having any creative or inspiring thoughts of your own. So here are some questions that you can ask yourself around inspiration. What does inspiration mean to you? What, like if you close your eyes and think like, what actually is inspiration? Think about that. Where do you think artists go for inspiration? Do you think if Rembrandt had Pinterest and Instagram in his day that he would be scrolling through that? No, probably not. How much time do you spend scrolling? And are Pinterest and Instagram your go-to for ideas? Yes, sometimes. If I need an idea for a birthday card, I might take a peek at Pinterest, but you know what? I'll set a limit. 5 minutes, scroll through, it's just all the same stuff, but I really like the colors that they used. So maybe I'll incorporate those colors into something different on my own piece. So maybe use those things as a jumping off point, but don't, go and try to replicate something that you saw on Pinterest or Instagram. And when's the last time you actually went exploring? So getting out of your same four walls, getting out of your regular situation and go exploring in the country, in the city, in nature, on the beach. Just go exploring. And how willing are you to do something different? Get out of your regular routine and do something different. Are you willing to do that in order to find inspiration? And it's not even so much nature itself, but I think just being in nature is just naturally inspiring, and it just the fresh air and the feeling of the air on our skin and the sun on our face is just cleansing and helps us just to make room for experiences that inspire us. Lucy says, Saturday mornings before I even get out of bed and the day gets ahead of me, I watch some YouTube videos of crafters that she follows. Even if she doesn't do anything related to what she watched, it inspires her to do at least something creative that day. Amazing. I love that. Forest washing. Yes, I've also heard the term forest bathing. Amazing. Michelle says she carries a little notebook with her, and when she gets an idea, she jots it down. That's really smart. Let's look at some ideas of how we can push the inspiration obstacle out of our way. So this might surprise some of you. Step away from Pinterest and Instagram. So we need to stop consuming inspiration and instead start creating inspiration. Talked about this briefly. Change your environment, change your scenery, change your routine. Go and explore somewhere new. Get in your car, turn off Google Maps or your GPS and just drive. Take the less traveled path. Take a different route. Go somewhere new. Get up close with nature, right? A lot of people talked about nature. Listen to different music. I cycle through a lot of the same playlists on my Spotify over and over and over again, and sometimes I just get sick of them. So I'll just go and find something totally different. And there might be a melody that reminds me of a color or reminds me of a flower. And it's just like, ooh, that gave me an idea. So sometimes even listening to different music can be enough to jolt you into a different way of thinking. Become more present, more mindful, more observant. My friend Ryan, I don't know if he's here tonight. Ryan, if you are, say hi in the chat. Ryan is a designer and a photographer, and he takes his camera out on morning walks, and he becomes very, very present in the moment with his camera focused on teeny tiny details of flowers, teeny tiny details of insects. If you follow him on Instagram, you can see some of his amazing photos, but he's discovered in doing these walks and taking this macro photography that he's not thinking about anything else. And he's just allowing whatever it is he's looking at to inspire him. So he might come up with a different color palette based on those greens and blues that we see on flies' bodies. Or, you know, like, it's ridiculous how present you can be when you're just laser focused on something really tiny. Learn something new. So take a new class. Hey, Ryan, learn something new. Take a class online or a local class, learn something new, and then see if you can flex it to make it your own. How can you flex it your way, right? And then in the more practical sense, play with weird and wacky combinations of things. So creativity is also the combination of two unusually associated things. So can you combine weird and wacky techniques? Can you combine weird and wacky materials like wool with collage, or crazy colors or different textures? So what can you just play with and get really weird with in order to see if you can spark a new idea or a new concept? What other ideas do you guys have for tapping into your own inspiration? What has worked for you guys? If you want to just pop some of your thoughts in the chat. Taking your dog somewhere for a walk someplace new, perfect. Mindless drawing, yes. Disconnect from tech and work and have a chance to relax, to let the ideas flow, yes. Sketchbook, outside, perfect. Looking at things from a different angle, I love that.
Look
Kimberly,
up.
really good. Looking up, yeah. Not having what you think you need forces you to think, what could you use instead? Vicky, I love that. That's great. Perfect. Start slow and be happy. Yeah, really great.
Dyeing your own yarn.
Dyeing your own yarn. Yes. Amazing. Very good. All right. We're ready for the fifth and final obstacle on our creative path. And it is, I really don't know if I have what it takes. So this kind of sounds like confidence, and there can be a little bit of overlap in some of these obstacles, but you're going to see how this next one is a little bit different from confidence, and it is dedication. So maybe dedication shows up for you with things like getting bored easily. You know, just kind of getting, I'm bored of this. I'm bored of calligraphy now. I don't want to buy supplies and then just give up. So this is going back to not wanting to waste time and money on supplies if you're just going to give up or let it go. So many people are better at it than I am. Yes, that speaks to confidence, but it's also about perseverance, right? So maybe you have been known to try something new a few times and then just stop, just abandon it. Are you afraid to push past the ugly, right? Like, there's going to be a time when you're learning something new where you're just not super great at it, but are you willing to push past that phase to keep going? Becca comes across this with her Show Me Your Drill students, right? And those of you who've taken Show Me Your Drills, like, there's an ugly phase, but it's fun. And if you can push through that, you get to the other side. Do you suffer from procrastination and perfection? These are real signs that you might be dealing with dedication as an obstacle. Is it really worth it? Yeah, absolutely. The last one is Deborah, for sure. Somebody said they score 4 out of 6 on this slide. Yeah. So tell us in the chat, how is dedication an obstacle for you? How does the obstacle of dedication showing up for you in your life? You get burned out from throwing yourself into it so much that you get sick of it. Yes, that's also common. When we become almost obsessive with something and we do it like to a fault, we can kind of burn out just from that intensity, right? So learning to pace ourselves, which takes us back to that confidence question, what's the rush, right? If you can pace yourself so that you don't get bored of it, so you don't get burnt out from it, you can probably see a better pattern of improvement and perseverance. Picking too many things at once that she wants to do. Deborah's saying that. Amazing. Yeah. Very cool. So let's see if some of these questions help to clarify this obstacle a little bit. What does dedication mean to you? I actually originally wanted to call this slide persistence. And then I was like, no, it's more like perseverance. But they're all, while they're all very similar, they're also all a little different. So dedication felt a little bit more uplifting to me, like we're dedicating our time and attention to something, whereas perseverance and persistence almost felt a little bit abrasive. So I went with dedication. But what does dedication mean to you? Do you typically struggle with perseverance in other aspects of your life? Like if you're trying to grow your hair long, will you persevere through that weird bob stage that doesn't actually look super hot on you, but you want your hair to grow past that stage? Like, are you willing to persevere? And like we did a few obstacles ago, think about times in your life when persistence has paid off for you. And if you want to share in the chat some experiences where persistence has paid off for you, I'd love to see some of your examples.
Can we save the chat so make it available to everybody afterwards?
Yeah.
She's saying there's lots of ideas in here that we don't want to lose.
Well, I may end up compiling a lot of these ideas and making them some sort of a PDF or something. So I could do that instead of just publishing the chat so that we don't have to weed through that. Okay, so how do you generally feel about learning new things? You know what? I'm going to confess, I don't know. I'm turning 50 this year and I don't know how to drive a standard transmission vehicle. I would love to learn, but I'm nervous about it because I don't want to wreck somebody's clutch. I don't want to look like a fool. I don't want to be embarrassed because I don't know how to do that at my age. But I also can get really excited about learning new things. I was excited about learning modern calligraphy when I first started doing that. I was really excited about learning acrylic mixed media. So generally, how do you feel about learning new things? And what's your self-talk like when things feel tough, right? Like, do you tend to should on yourself or crap on yourself if you're struggling with something, or when things get a little bit difficult and you're trying to push through? Like, how do you actually talk to yourself in those moments? Do you wait for inspiration to strike, right? We talked about inspiration just being like these floaty things that you can just pluck out of the air. Like, that's not realistic. It's not how it works. So do you typically think that it's just going to magically appear and be infused into your experience? What are your thoughts on the term writer's block? Is that a thing? I'm putting these questions out there to see if it triggers something in you. And what expectations do you have on the outcome of whatever it is you're trying to achieve? If you're working on a specific project, are you tied to a specific outcome? Is there any room for flexibility along the way? Is there any room for you to change your expectation of that output? And is a different output necessarily bad or wrong? So what are your expectations around outcome? And this one's really important too. Do you celebrate the completion of projects, or do you celebrate when you feel that you've achieved a particular level of learning or level of awareness of something? Vicky's saying deadlines help her avoid perfectionism. Yeah, absolutely. Sandra says she's okay doing things just for the process. It doesn't need to be perfect. There's a quote I learned about perfect, and I should look it up again because I don't remember it exactly, but it's something like, perfect doesn't exist if we remove the ability to compare, right? If you can't compare something to something else that you deem is perfect, then the perfect doesn't exist. If anybody actually knows how that quote goes, pop it in the chat. I saw it somewhere about a year and a half ago, and I meant to go back and write it down exactly, but perfect is the enemy of good. Yes. Yeah. Oh, a few people are saying that. All right. So who's ready for the breakthrough strategies of our final obstacle? Yes. Okay, dedication. Guess what? Fresh ideas come from trying new things. That probably feels like a little bit of an overlap to the inspiration obstacle, and it's true. But we also can feel like we're running out of enthusiasm for something if we run out of ideas. So fresh ideas can help you stay dedicated to an outcome or to an accomplishment. Try to visualize the outcome, but don't be so married to it that there isn't any wiggle room. One thing that I really like to do if I'm struggling to move forward is to actually go backward. I go backward to the basics for some quick, easy wins to give me some momentum to go back and start from where I left off. And that might just be drawing lines or drawing circles or seeing what I can do with the letters of the alphabet. Just go back to the basics, go back to something where you're feeling a little bit more comfortable and confident. Start backwards a few steps before going forward a few steps. Try a different approach or try a different tool or a different medium. Experiment with different colors. So these are just ways to help you stay motivated and enthusiastic about moving forward, right? When you feel stagnant and you feel stuck, sometimes it's just a sign of boredom. So change what you're doing a little bit, just enough to make it interesting again so that you keep moving forward. Craft a reward to celebrate completion. If you're trying to complete a specific project, craft a reward. It could be a girls' night out, or it could be a couple episodes of Schitt's Creek or whatever. Like, craft some way that you're going to celebrate either reaching a milestone in your learning or completing a specific project. And once again, invite a friend for accountability and fun, right? Sometimes we just need a friend to keep us moving forward, and you can do that for each other. And it's also super fun. There's some more overlap here. Do it for the process rather than the specific outcome. So try to really enjoy the process and letting the process ebb and flow and weave and bend. And don't be so hung up on the actual outcome or end result. What other ideas do you have for committing to learning or committing to moving forward with a specific project or art form or creative form? So what ideas have you guys got in your chat for dedication? This is your Achilles heel. Lucy is saying that. Yeah, for sure. So how's everybody feeling? Share in the chat if you've had any big light bulb moments so far. I would love to hear if you've had any big aha moments during our chat so far. Permission to make ugly crap, yes. Creating the energy space, very much. Blocking your time out on schedule. Doing it for work, why not for yourself? Yes. Feeling like you have some direction and picking 2 areas to move forward with. Great. Naming the boredom that you feel as dedication problems. I love that. Very good. The Brené Brown quote is super powerful. She speaks quite a lot about creativity. So if you want to Google Brené Brown and creativity, you could probably find at least a dozen different, she's a big fan of the creative arts and of creativity in general. So I'm sure you'd find a lot of inspiring things that you could use in your creative projects. Julia Cameron is amazing. I've got a bunch of her books as well. Well, as I've mentioned, I've seen so many people struggle to clear these obstacles. These are the obstacles that come up for so many people when they ask me for creative play coaching or creativity coaching, or they're the struggles that I see when during my retreat, people are just staring at that blank canvas and being so afraid to make that first mark, right? I've witnessed the many benefits of daily creative play, not only in my own life, but in the lives of the women and sometimes men who I've worked with at my events and online. And I know that so many of you in the chat have experienced your own benefits of regular creative play. I'm thinking specifically of my friend Heidi, who sits and doodles while she and her husband watch TV in the evenings. And it's just so cleansing for her. I also know that it can be very difficult to make creative play a daily priority, which is why I'm super excited to announce Becoming Consciously Creative. Just let that sink in for a minute. Becoming Consciously Creative. 6 weeks to fearlessly create a joyful, intentional life. Becoming Consciously Creative is a live online course running September 23rd through November 4th of this year. That's 42 days with yours truly guiding you live to discover and nurture your creative energy. It's cool, right? Course materials will be released every Thursday morning. They'll be in your inbox when you wake up, so you're ready for the weekend. They will be videos to describe and demonstrate the week's worth of creative play activities and prompts. And once published, the videos and the materials will stay in the course library so you can access them anytime. Daily activities are designed for approximately 20 minutes of conscious creativity. I don't want you spending any more than 30 minutes a day on these activities. They're just enough to give you some of that Zen flow time. The daily activities will be a mix of creative exercises in an art journal and prompts for gentle, playful, and mindful moments of exploration and observation. So there might be 5 actual creative activities that you'll do in an art journal, and then 2 exercises that get you out into the world doing something different. Every week we will have live group check-ins, and there's a private built-in non-Facebook community. I really don't like Facebook groups. I think that Facebook is a major distraction, and when you're trying to participate and be present and intentional in a Facebook group, you get a notification about something else and you're off. So in my camp membership and here in Becoming Consciously Creative, the community will be built right into this platform so that you can stay present and intentional. The weekly group live check-ins will be midweek. So if we're distributing the content on Thursdays, the live check-ins will be on Mondays, so halfway through our creative week. And I will wait to see where the participants are coming from and what time zone works best, but I'll be offering 2 live check-ins every Monday throughout the course so that I can reach and connect with as many participants as possible. Becoming Consciously Creative runs, like I said, September 23rd through November 4th. By developing a mindful practice of creative self-care, you will attract more calm, joy, and wonder into your daily experience. So as a summary, the course is weekly video lessons, daily creative exercises, weekly group check-ins, and ongoing guidance and community. It's a live course. The content will be dripped each week, but you have me at your disposal and you have the community at your disposal for the full 42 days. This is an outline of the content for each week. So week 1, we're just going to be working to set ourselves up for a very successful time together. We're going to be making time and space, so looking at those obstacles and making sure that we've cleared them out of the way so that you can get the most out of this course as you potentially can. We'll look at shifting your mindset, right? Creating space in your energy and connecting to yourself and the community. We'll just get to know each other a little bit so that we can fully support each other and lean into each other throughout our time together. Week 2, the theme will be flow. So finding that flow state. And we're going back to basics, and we're just going to make marks in an art journal with very basic black mark making tools: pencil, pen, charcoal, brush pens. Week 3, we're going to get a little playful and start making marks with colorful tools: crayons, pastels, coloring pencils, markers. Week 4 is all about freedom. We're going to use our fingers and we're going to make messes with paints, watercolors, and acrylics. You don't need to go to the art store. We're just talking about super basic supplies, and I will be providing a full supplies list well in advance of our start date so that you can grab whatever supplies you don't already have on hand. But you can get these things at the dollar store. It's not about the quality of the materials, it's about the quality of your time and your experience. Week 5 will be all about exploring. We're going to look at different textures. I'm going to show you how to use old book pages to create some really cool collage textures for your art journals. We'll play with stamps and stencils and, of course, elements from nature. And in week 6, we're going to bring it all together and discover the magic of mixed media. So we'll bring all of these elements together in our art journals with collage and color, marks, and texture to really explore lots of different techniques that we've learned throughout the 6 weeks. So how's that sounding for everybody? You excited? Dory, yes. Leslie, amazing. Yes, Carla, so good. Deanna, Heidi, wonderful. Thanks, everybody. I'm very excited to share this, but I'm also a little tiny bit nervous. Never done anything like this before, so I'm thrilled. Thank you. So what is this all worth? And because I've never run this course before, I don't have all the fancy things for my pitch slides. I don't have testimonials. I don't have pictures of people's work. I don't have screenshots of the course content because it will be developed in advance of the course and as we go. So let's look at the breakdown. Weekly 30-minute video classes, value $500. Printable worksheets every week, $120. Daily 20-minute creative exercises, $750. Weekly 30-minute group live check-ins, $500. Exclusive access to a private community, priceless. Lifetime access to all of the course content, also priceless. And if I budget an hour of my time a day, which is probably a gross underestimation, my time in this course with you is worth $4,200. So that's over $6,000 in value, but you got it, Dina, because you guys are going to be the guinea pigs. I'm offering it for only $497. So $497. These prices also are in Canadian dollars. So whatever that is in US or your own currency. So wait, you're asking all of this for only $497? I know, right? It sounds very reasonable when you look at the breakdown. But guess what? I love how corny this is. It has to be corny, otherwise, like, I just can't take myself seriously enough to make this a big corny sales pitch. Okay. Because this is my premiere launch of this course, I want to build it as I go with the support of the people who are enrolled. So I'm offering it for $247. That's more than 50% off what the public price will be. And this price is available only to the registrants of this webinar. So the coupon code, you want to write this down on your worksheet, is BCC50. So it's Becoming Consciously Creative 50. So BCC50. So write that down. Now, over on the left of your screen, it says doors open August 19th. Join the waitlist. But guess what? The doors are open right now. So if you go, don't go right now. You can go in a few minutes. But I want to show you. I'm scrolling through the website, becomingconsciouslycreative.com, and at checkout, you just need to enter that code BCC50 to save over 50%. I'm only going to run this course 2, maybe 3 times a year. And this coupon code is only available for the people who are watching this webinar. Okay, enough about that. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you so, so much. So we've got a good half hour. If you guys have questions, let me have them.
Got one right there. What happens if you fall behind in the course, from Winifred?
I'm giving you that's a great question, Winifred.
A couple of people.
Okay, perfect. Yes, the exercises will be very accessible. And like I said, there will probably be only 5 actual exercises each week. I'm aiming for them to be 15-20 minutes each. So you'll get the kind of the overview video Thursday mornings. You can watch it. That's only going to be about 20 or 30 minutes long. I'll just quickly demonstrate the activities for the week. And then you'll have 5 20-minute exercises for the week. And then you'll have a couple of days where I'm encouraging you to go out and explore in the world. You can use those times to catch up. And the course material will be available for you for life. Like, once you have access to the course, you don't just get cut off and booted out after the 6 weeks is over. You'll have access to it for life. It's $247 Canadian now with that coupon code. So if you go now, you'll see that the sales page says $497. But if you go through to the checkout, it will ask you for a coupon code where you would enter BCC50. And once you hit apply code, you'll see that your balance changes to $247. Of course, if you're in Canada, your HST will be added on top of that. Yeah, it works out to about $195 US in today's exchange rate. I love that all your questions are about the course. Does anybody have questions in respect to the webinar content? Ronnie's asking, physical activity and creativity, making time for both. What do you suggest in balancing those two? Well, creative activity can be physical, right? Dance is very much playful, creative. Just doing kind of I'm a big dancer. I love dance. I danced from grade 4 all the way through high school. It's one way that I can shake off nervous energy and just change my mood in a heartbeat. So absolutely, creativity can be expressed through dance and body movement, yoga, just kind of free form. And if you're concerned more about like scheduling time for both physical activity and creative activity, maybe you look at alternating them in your schedule. Yeah, the questions that I asked with respect to each of the obstacles are really beautiful jumping off points for journaling and just tapping into where your beliefs lie around those expectations and obligations, right? Where your beliefs lie in regards to each of those obstacles. So if you can check the replay for those questions, absolutely do some journaling around that. How do you suggest someone get motivated and keep with the schedule to be creative when dealing with depression? Well, that's a tricky thing for me to answer because I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I know that when I am feeling depressed, when I have depressive episodes, or when I'm feeling particularly anxious, just sitting down and doing mindless creativity, not even so much mindful, but mindless, like just drawing lines or just like scribbling or just letting myself make random marks, that it's just enough to let go of all of the other weight and stresses that are on me. Yeah, I am sorry I don't have a better answer specifically for dealing with depression, but I hope that maybe helped you a little bit. How is camp different than becoming consciously creative? Becoming consciously creative is a step-by-step workflow. Like we're going to be working through a process and specifically looking at building upon what we learned the week before, right? Building upon the mindset, breaking through those obstacles to get to the next week. So it's a self-contained exploration of a lot of different techniques and mediums, and also working a lot with mindset. Camp is a little bit more free flow. So Camp is a membership site where you can jump in. All of the content that I've ever published is there now waiting for you. It's $47 Canadian a month, and you get access to all of the classes. I try to upload new video classes every month, but we also have really great live events. Every Thursday at noon, we have a camp picnic and we do fun exercises during the picnic. We just hang out. I have guest artists. We also do fun things like Zoom scavenger hunts and trivia nights. So camp is exactly what camp is. It's a place for you to learn new things, bust through fear. There's a great community. We hang out and we learn new things, but it's not a specific outlined program. Does that make sense? Well, unless there are any last questions, I will just ask you one more time to share in the chat your biggest takeaway from this webinar. Accepting imperfection is your biggest takeaway. Amazing, Dina, that's great. Winifred says she didn't realize how much play she was missing in her life. Yes, everything's always a hustle. Yeah. You really can do anything you put your mind to, in creativity and in everything. Veronica is saying that. Making time for yourself. Wonderful. Amazing. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight. You can find me just about anywhere. I'm Hey JoeGirl on Instagram and just about everywhere else on social media. I hope you got a lot out of this webinar. I hope you learned how to identify those obstacles in your life and in your experience. And I really hope that you took away some strategies to help clear them, break through them, and get them out of your way for good so you can push forward with your creative play endeavors. And I really do hope that you consider joining me for my premiere session of Becoming Consciously Creative. So thank you all very much. My music's not working. I was going to have a musical outro, so we will just leave it at that. Thank you so much, everybody. It was a real joy being with you and seeing you in the chat. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Mwah!